Hello fellow writers! So this is my second video on querying, the very exciting process of finding a literary agent to represent you. So I started querying my novel, Daughters of a Dead Empire, in 2017. And I started by querying 17 different agents who represented young adult fiction. Of those 17, one requested a partial manuscript from me, and she ultimately ghosted me. Those are pretty bad numbers. That's a pretty bad rate. I entered into Author Mentor Match, was happily accepted into round 3, and over the next almost a year, probably about 10 months, I worked with my mentor, J. Albert Mann, to revise my manuscript and to, of course, polish my query, my synopsis, all of the materials that I was sending out. So I started querying again in September of 2018. And at that point I'd spent all of August really creating my target list of agents, researching them online, on Query Tracker, Publishers Marketplace, and I created my list of target agents. I had a list of 75 agents with the thought in mind that ultimately I would build that up to 100, but I kind of got tired of researching after 75. So I built out that list and I began querying again. I divided my agent list into rounds of 8 to 10 agents apiece. I didn't really have preferences between the agents, although obviously a big name was very exciting, but I tiered my agents really based on how interested I thought they would be in me. So in other words, how likely it might be that I would get a response from them based on the kinds of stories they said they were interested in or the kinds of stories they represented. I started my second round of querying with Pitmad, which is an online Twitter pitch contest. The publishing industry has lots of these Twitter contests, and they're an opportunity for you to essentially pitch your manuscript in 280 characters or less. Agents will sort of trawl all of the pitches that are coming in under that hashtag over the course of one day, and they'll like ones that they're interested in seeing. The two big pitch contests that are still happening on Twitter, and agents, a lot of good agents are still participating in, are Pitmad. It was the first, I think, and it's the biggest. DVPit. It's DV stands for diverse pit, and diverse pitch, I guess. It's open to any authors who come from backgrounds that are traditionally excluded from or marginalized in the publishing industry. So those are the two big Twitter contests that are still happening, and I participated in both. I started with Pitmad in September. One really important tip about participating in pitch contests is get your friends to retweet you. Whatever you can do to get more engagement with your tweets is going to help more agents see your tweets. There are so many authors participating in these contests that you can get buried and lost really easily. If you just have even 5 to 10 friends retweet you to boost your query, it's gonna make a huge difference. That's how many I had, and I was able to get about, in Pitmad, about a dozen likes from agents through that way. So in this second bout of querying that I did in 2018, I ultimately queried 51 agents. 9 of those agents came from Pitmad, and 3 more came from DVPit. Of the 51 agents I queried, 34 of them turned me down without ever requesting pages. That means 66% of those people rejected me flat out. That's a pretty good rate, honestly. It's a lot of no's that you're gonna receive, or a lot of dead air when they don't respond to you. But 66% rejection rate is actually pretty solid. 17 of them requested manuscripts or pages from me. Most of them did request full manuscripts. In my experience, partial requests are not that common anymore. Obviously, there are agents who are still doing it, but it's a relic of the days when authors had to pay to print out their manuscripts and pay the postage to mail it to agents before the days of email. In these days, it's all done by email. It doesn't cost an author anything to send their complete manuscript all at once. So in my experience, most agents are requesting full manuscripts, and I think that eventually the partial manuscript thing is gonna die out. But we'll see. Ultimately, I got 2 offers of representation from these agents, and all in all, this second round took me about 4 months in total. 4 months is pretty fast, in my opinion. Again, though, keep in mind this was my second attempt. So what was different between 2017 and 2018? Why did I have so much more luck the second time around than the first time? it was my manuscript. It was my manuscript that had changed. I had spent that time, invested it in improving my manuscript and significantly revising it. And I just had a stronger product to be selling. That was reflected in the query letters. It wasn't a fundamental change to my query, but just that structural change made all the difference in the world. And I couldn't have done that in the query if I hadn't done it in the manuscript. Then I got an email from Andrea Somberg who said she wanted to talk to me. She enjoyed my manuscript and she wanted to speak to me about it. I got this email, it must have been on like a Monday morning. I didn't want to get my hopes up too high because I was like, maybe it's a revise and resubmit, which, by the way, if any agent is watching this, don't do that. Just don't do it. If you are asking an author to call you or to set up a call about anything other than representing them, tell them in the email so that their hopes don't rise up to the moon and then they get disappointed when they're on the phone with you. Not just disappointed, get their hearts broken when they're on the phone with you. So don't do that. Luckily, Andrea wasn't doing that. Monday, I got an email from her and she said she wanted to talk, and I responded like immediately because I was constantly checking my email while querying, which is a terrible thing to do. Don't do that. So I saw her email and I was like, yes, of course. I happened to, I think, have some plans that evening, something I couldn't get out of. So I was like, what's the soonest we can possibly connect? And sadly for me, that was like Tuesday afternoon. And so the next day and a half, I was just like out of my mind all the time, waiting for this call, thinking about what it was going to be. But I did very responsibly. I had a list of questions prepared to ask her in case she was going to offer representation, so I was prepared for the call in that sense. I just wasn't emotionally prepared for it. The next day we hop on the phone and she's like, hi, yeah, I really enjoyed your manuscript and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, great. Like totally non-committal. Then there was a moment where she paused and she was like, so I want to offer to represent you, because I think she was like, is she not getting it? And then I lost my mind and I went to lock myself in an office and I was just like, in my opinion, I was a raving lunatic on the call. I just didn't know what to say. I was like, oh my goodness, blah, 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 this is amazing. Like I was an idiot in my memory. Andrea says I was perfectly normal and fine, which to me probably means that like a lot of people are raving lunatics during these calls. Anyways, I got the call from her. She offered to represent me. And then I took 10 days to notify all the other agents who had my manuscript. I had another call with another agent, but ultimately I decided to go with Andrea. That was the story of the call. It was, I still look back on it as just like a turning point in my life, the day of that call. And it's just, you know, one of my dearest memories. In my next video, I'm going to talk about choosing between agents and working with your agent. So I'll get into a lot further detail about that. But in short, that was my process of querying. It took me, you could either say 4 months or a year and a half, however you want to count it, to get represented for my novel. And here I am, getting ready to be published in 2021. So very exciting. I hope that if you haven't already, you get to go through a very similar process. As I said, I'll link to all of the sites and resources I mentioned below, and good luck on your journey. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one.